Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, and otherworldly and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow Creepin' It Real Show on Twitter at creepin_it. You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, creepinitrealshow.com. Without further ado, welcome to this week's episode.
Hey creepers, it happens to be Easter. I am one of your hosts, Moni, and we are so happy to be back with you today. And I am going to be driving this crazy train right now, but here with me is Yardley. Hey Yardley, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, trying to get over this little cold, but I plan on limping across the finish line.
We'll get there. And Miss Kristi, how are you?
I'm good. Happy Easter. This show is brought to you down south in Miami. We're here on spring break. We're about to be in Miami for a Cubs game. And yeah, everything's going really good. Can't complain.
Nice. We love it. So I was kind of thinking today, since we've been on our 2-week hiatus, we would talk about whatever happened in pop culture that we are aware of, that we could catch our listeners up on, and what we've been up to the past 2 weeks as it relates to our show. So I wanted to mention I went to WonderCon in Anaheim last weekend, which is a wonderful con. It's WonderCon, but it actually is the sister convention to the big San Diego Comic-Con that we do in July. And it's held over it's actually literally across the street from Disneyland. And it's a really neat little con, tons and tons of cosplay. But there's also, I went in a work capacity because there's a lot of like how to get press and makerspace type of stuff. So that was all relevant to library because we have 3D printing and virtual reality. So I went down and I played a lot of virtual reality games so I could test different systems and just so I could have fun, whatever. But I did actually, and I know the show has started since then, but I actually had an opportunity to go onto the Terror Experience, that new TV show that we had talked about that was coming from AMC. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if y'all had a chance to watch it, but I did go onto basically they had one of those big old storage unit things, and it was decorated like a big icicle. And then you went inside and they actually had projected onto the walls just a short little clip of like the real story behind the show, how I think it's 1884, 2 ships went in search of a more direct route somewhere and were never seen again and blah, blah. And then it opens up and you go and you sit on this little boat inside this trailer and the snow starts coming down and they project scenes from the TV show. So that was kind of a neat experience. And then even more fun was afterward, I got interviewed for AMC and we ended up talking about The Walking Dead, and we talked about a couple other AMC shows, and I think the interview is going to be used in some other capacities, but there was a clip of me, a little blurb, like my friend was making fun of me, 1.5 seconds of stardom. But I think we posted it on our Facebook page. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you guys get a chance to watch The Terror this week?
I watched an hour of it.
What did you guys think?
It's okay. I only watched an hour. I'm still in like what's going on mode right now. So, yeah. What did you think, Yardley?
I thought it was solid. I actually have Dan Simon's book here. I didn't finish reading it, but when I watched the episode, and actually I can kind of pitch my other podcast. We've got a podcast called Talking Terror, and the first episode is going to be it's going to be on Tuesday. And it's kind of funny because I might ask you to come chat up your experience, try to get you on to talk about your experience with AMC, Moni. But I thought that it was solid. It definitely, by the end of the first episode, it got me interested enough to want to keep on doing it. Obviously, if I'm doing a podcast on it, it was something that I was anticipating. Yeah. So as of now, I can't say that I was disappointed with what I got. I thought it was a decent setup in the first episode. So we'll see how the rest of the things play out.
I'm excited then because I tried watching it 3 nights, but I've turned into the new Moni because I have to get up at the butt crack of dawn. I don't even get up at the butt crack of dawn. I get up at before the butt crack of dawn. And by the time I get home and get everything done and I sit down, I'm out. Like, I tried, but my eyes just weren't staying open. So I'm gonna
welcome to narcolepsy land, my dear.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to finish it because I was so excited. It was like literally I was counting down, and I sit down to watch it, and it was like clunk. I was just out. So, and I tried it 2 other times, and I got pretty far in. I think I've got a little under an hour left. So, yeah, I really want to watch it before and now here comes the other episode, which we're gonna miss. So, anyway, I'll be a little behind, so I apologize. I'll be the slow one.
Well, I don't know if you know, but my dad worked in Fish and Game, and so he knows a little bit about like animals and stuff. And that thing with the polar bear is true. I guess polar bears have such limited access to, well, so what I mean by thing with the polar bear is like hunting them down, basically, like being a terror for people in that region because they don't have much access to fresh meat. And so when a human being is introduced into their environment, they're like, that is something that I need to eat, and they're smart and they've got nothing else to do. And so those fuckers will chase you down and continue to hunt you until they get you because that's rare delicacy for them. So
yeah, good eating.
Yeah. So that's fucking terrifying just right there of itself. I mean, honestly, they don't even need a monster or not a monster to be the terror in their situation, but
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be a great show. We'll continue. I mean, the setup was a little slow for me because the Moni likes the go boom, but still, it was interesting. And
well,
I'm looking
ratings
forward to more.
You know what? Ratings wise, it did pretty good because, of course, it's got that lead in from the remnants of who's still watching The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily saying that this content is necessarily the type of content that everybody who watches The Walking Dead might like, but I have to probably say that it did help it a little. But the ratings that it got were pretty solid, and I think that AMC has a habit of a lot of their money makers, like The Walking Dead, they're usually surrounded by other shows that if you ask most people are better. They just don't get the notoriety. And I kind of think that this show might steal a little bit of thunder from the repetitive nature of The Walking Dead.
Yeah, no, I kind of hope so. Honestly, The Walking Dead deserves it. But that being said, I want to give 2 more updates about my past couple of weeks, and then I'll let you guys update on what you've been watching or reading or into since we've been on hiatus. But I actually lead in for The Walking Dead. Today is also my wedding anniversary and April Fool's Day.
Happy anniversary.
And thanks. We are going to we're going to see The Talking Dead. So we're going to actually get to go see The Walking Dead episode before it airs, even on the East Coast. So no phones or anything allowed. And then we will see in studio, and then we will get to see The Talking Dead and be a part of that. And so that's kind of exciting. I mean, again, I have lost some enthusiasm for The Walking Dead as a show, but I'm in that abusive relationship, as I've mentioned before. So with the show, sorry to qualify, but last week's episode was better. There was better, they've changed showrunners, they've changed writers, and there was a little more meat to the characters, a little bit of a hint that they might hopefully be driving them in a direction of actually, I don't know, being characters instead of just being the stupid, repetitive crap that they've been like serving, reheating, and reserving to us in the past couple of seasons. So I hope I'm not getting my hopes up for no reason, but last week's episode was better, and I'm excited to see this week's episode because the guests for The Talking Dead will be Ron Funches, the comedian whom I love, and the trash heap lady, the model lady who plays like the trash. I don't know if you guys are even watching anymore, but she's kind of an interesting character. And then a special guest character, which usually means someone's going to die on the show and come on. So that'll be exciting. So that's something for 2 suburban parents to do that's outside of the norm. And then Also at WonderCon, I got to see a live recording of Bizarre States podcast. Shout out to
Oh,
Jessica Chobot and
cool.
Andrew Bowser. Yeah, it's not
Did
my
you
first
get?
time.
Did you tell
Oh,
her that you in love with her?
oh, she already knows because
Oh,
I've
okay.
already stalked her at various other conventions throughout the years.
Aw.
And I actually was on Bizarre States last year for Comic-Con, I want to say, talking about my experiences on the Queen Mary,
Mm-hmm.
because they had some Queen Mary experts up there.
Cool.
So that was kind of cool. But they talked about the Atacama skeleton, and I know Kristi doesn't want to hear it, but there has been some updates about her, about Miss Ada, in the past.
Her? I thought it was a man.
Yeah.
It's a boy. It's not a boy.
She's
It's
a
a girl.
girl. So my computer's acting very poorly, so I'm not going to open the links. But from what I remember of reading, there's two different updates that have come forward. And Yardley, did you hear anything about Ada in the past couple weeks, or is this just?
Yeah. Well, no, I
Yeah.
mean, I had posted the thing on our page. I think I had posted the
Oh, that was
CNN.
you. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, essentially, a lot of the questions that we were talking about when we had discussed it on the podcast in the past about, what the sex was or how old it appeared to be and things like that. A lot of the answers revolve around the age, the gender, and where it was from. So essentially, what they did was they ran a DNA test. And the dating had initially estimated that the bone age was 6 to 8 years. Turns out that wasn't the case. After they tested the bones, it was a bone aging disorder. And I've seen documentaries on this, but it was
Like
like
progeria or whatever?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it just basically ages it. So that kind of, made their estimates kind of off. And then at first they were saying that 8% of the DNA didn't match with human DNA. But basically what happened on that front was just that, it was degraded samples. So they did an improved analysis and it matched it up to 98%. And they were basically saying that the exposure and the age of the skeleton, it wasn't surprising. It was just abnormalities in in that fetus or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
pretty simple.
basically what they're saying is they're just not ready to come out and fully admit that these are aliens, and so therefore the science community has had to step forward and make some bullshit up. Right? Am I right? You guys, high five. Thanks.
No,
Absolutely
nope.
Totally not right.
Whatever.
So she's
But
only 40 years ago,
well,
though. Like,
well, you
nobody's
know what?
come forward.
But we did kind of make some assumptions. I can't remember how many shows back that was, but I think some of us. I think I had mentioned I thought that it was a mutation
Yeah.
myself, but I mean it's pretty simple. None of the explanations that they're giving, none of them are like coming out of nowhere. A lot of these things are based off of things that we have evidence from. So you could actually prove that, hey, this is why we were kind of off with dating it, or why is it so small? I mean, it seems kind of cool, but sometimes the truth hurts, I guess. I don't know.
I think my words are hard. Compromise between full-on alien and just a mutated child was that it was a mutated alien. So, there's still that 2%. It could have been a mutated alien child. You don't know.
It could have been from deep Earth. Hey.
Or another dimension, I think, was one of the things.
Yes.
That was, yeah.
Like where Nessie's from. I mean, come on, you guys. Science can't explain it all, can
Nope.
it?
Maybe kind of, actually. But So
Alright.
there's another update on it, though, too. And again, without opening the link again, but they're like, oh, this came out in 2012, and some guy sold it for the amount of like €40, basically. Initially, yeah, when they excavated her, they sold her because he was like, this is cool, and I want to make some money. So then, like, the Chilean government was like, whatevs, we don't care. But But now that it's become a thing, and this is just my editorial, like based on nothing, but now that it's become a thing, all of a sudden they're like, hey, that's illegal the way that you took it out of Chile, and we want to like check into that. So now the government's like trying to see if it was legal the way that it was excavated and the way that it was taken out of the country. Yeah, now that she's become famous 15 years after she was pulled out of the ground, now they want to make an issue out of it. So there's legal stuff against it, and we'll kind of see how that plays out. If we get any new information, we will share it with our creepers. But I think that's kind of ridiculous, quite honestly. But what do I know? I thought she was an alien, so whatever.
You thought? I mean, yeah. All right.
I'm just happy. I'm just happy that it was real. It looked like something that came from like the London Tower torture
I just wanted
shot.
her on a keychain.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm just happy that it was real. That's good enough for me.
I'm going to find a mold of this thing, and I'm going to send it off, and I'm going to get you a damn keychain for you, a little add-a keychain you can carry forever to remember me by.
Well,
You're
I'm
welcome.
going to hype right now. I keep mentioning, but I'm going to hype right now that we're going to see each other in November, and we're going to have an epic podcast recording at that time. So you can bring her to me by November.
Yes, so for what people don't know is I am going to fly to San Jose and join Moni to see the Winchester in person. And
Yes.
we're going to try to stay at a haunted hotel and
Yes.
maybe record the show so it'll be opposite. So instead of me being, which me and Yardley haven't recorded a show together, which is ridiculous because we live in the same city. So we have to do
Get that going first.
and I'd like to do it like after we do like an activity together, like do an activity like a haunted place or something, and then that next show recording do the show together so we could just kind of interact in actual person. But so then I'm gonna fly over to San Jose and we're gonna hit the Winchester and stay in a haunted hotel, and I can't wait. Sorry,
That's
my
gonna
voice
be
went up high and a little octave. I'm excited. So yeah.
Yes.
And then we
All
got
of
to
that.
get Moni to fly, not here, because here is not where I normally am here, but to Atlanta, and we can all three be together. Maybe we can like find like a haunted location, bar, or like a restaurant or a house or something, like a museum house or whatever. There's so many things to choose from in Atlanta, and do our show. That would be really cool.
That sounds epically fucking amazing. Like,
Yes.
we should find a way to like live stream that show, honestly.
Oh my
But
gosh.
at any rate, yeah.
All right.
Not
Without
scary from
the
a tech
edit button.
perspective at all.
Yeah. That's okay. After last show, I was like, fuck it, and just posted the whole thing. I was like, there is no way to clean this mess. So
We
we're
clearly
just going
needed
to
a
do
hiatus
it.
after that.
Yeah. Well, I have zero coping skills. So when anything changes in my life, I freak out and I have to like slowly work it all in again. So taking on a new role and basically my whole career changing was a little daunting, and
Just a little.
I needed a little hiatus to get shit all figured out. So I appreciate the patience.
No, dude,
but-
that's a good transition. Why don't you tell us what you've been up to the past couple weeks?
Well, job-wise, I quit consulting and got an offer for a nonprofit organization. I'm not going to say what it is online because people get weird and look shit up and
No.
I've had a lot of weird things happen to me in the past with podcasts, so I'm like, But I love my job. I love it. My only issue is I work by the airport, and Yardley, you know what that means for me because Atlanta traffic is absolute fucking hell. And B, I live far from the airport. So on a good day, I can get there in like 50 minutes. On a bad day, and usually like my commute there is great because I leave really early and I beat the main traffic. But on the way home, I leave at 4, and that's the heart of rush hour. So, well, it's the beginning of rush hour, and it just gradually gets
Sucks
worse.
for you.
Yeah, so it takes
Boo,
me
yeah.
it takes me usually an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes to get home. So that was an adjustment considering I've been working from home for years. So, but I had to weigh my options and think, this is literally every single thing I'm doing is so exactly what I wanted to do. And I literally love my job. Like, I get excited driving the 45, 50 minutes it takes to get there. And the greatest part about it is that I've been listening to podcasts like the whole time on my commutes. And when we end the show today, I'd like to shout out to a couple of podcasts I've been listening to. One of them really goes well with our topics that we're going to be talking about today. So, but did you want me to talk about what happened now?
If you're comfortable with it, yeah, go for it.
It's fine. I mean, it's now I look at it and it isn't a big deal, but at the time it kind of fucked with me. I was really I think it was one of those when you're so obsessed with horror and terror and all this stuff, and then it kind of really happens to you in real life. It's like you realize just how quickly things can change. It kind of really messes with you. For a celebration of getting my job, and for my friend, some of you guys know her, Jamie. I think, Yardley, you've met Jamie. She had her birthday was St. Patrick's Day, but I wasn't going to be in town. We went to Hilton Head Island in Savannah for St. Patrick's Day, so I made it up to her, and this was kind of my last hurrah day of not, we took the whole day. We went shopping down in Ponce City Market and did drunk shopping. Like, we'd go to the bar and we'd drink, and then we'd come down and shop, and had a great time. And we ended it at this restaurant called Raw, R-A, which is a amazing sushi place. It's a chain. I had only been to the one up in Chicago. I had never been to the one in Atlanta. Yardley, have you been to the Raw sushi?
No, I haven't, not yet.
Oh, it is really, if you like sushi, it's really, really good. And so we were feeling good. We had been drinking all day and sat down and was drinking more and eating sushi, having the time of our lives. They brought her a cake, a little piece of cake for her birthday, paid our bill. All of a sudden, like, we were just sitting there, and we were actually, because once we've had a few drinks, we know no strangers. Like, we were talking to everybody around us. We were offering recommendations, like we were like the experts of Raw, and sharing our food, and we were having a ball. And then all of a sudden, two tables over, this guy stands up and he's like, "You're a fucking thief." And he was talking to, what I'm assuming was the waiter or a manager, somebody that worked at Raw. And they start arguing, and he just keeps saying over and over that this guy that works there is the thief. And we're all just sitting, the whole restaurant's just kind of sitting there like, what the hell's going on? So then the guy punches this waiter, and they start brawling like Jesus. Blood. I mean, he punched this kid. First of all, this guy was huge. The guy that was the guest was huge. And we were just like, holy shit. I mean, he punched that guy and blood just went, like what you would see in the movies, just like a whoof, and his head flew back and blood just went shoo. And they start, the waiter like grabs a chair and is like kind of putting the chair in between him and this guy. Well, the guest pulls a gun out, and Jamie grabs me and says, "Hit the floor." And we go down, and we're hiding like under the bar. And half the people were on the floor, and the other half were just like sitting in their chairs watching, like, oh, this happens every day. And I'm sitting under this bar area on the outside, where the chairs are. And I'm like, this is happening. Like, it was so surreal, And two other guys that worked at the restaurant come up behind the guy and start trying to get him, because he's not really doing anything with the gun. He's just kind of holding it and like pointing it. And he's yelling and screaming. I can't even remember what the guy was saying after this point. It was like tunnel vision, And then they start trying to tackle him. They tackle him. They get the gun. They bat the gun away. The gun goes sliding somewhere. I'm on the floor, so I literally can't see what's going on. I can just see him over now. They're kind of closer to the exit. And Jamie, as we're hiding, decides to stick her head out from under our hidey hole and is like, "Hey, not on my watch, not on my birthday, sit the fuck down." And I'm like, "Jamie, shut the fuck up. What are you doing? We're like hiding, and you're over here like being like, don't be a hero." And And the guy turns around and he's like, shut the fuck up, bitch. And I'm like, yeah, Jamie, shut the fuck up. And finally, they get the guy, like, down on the ground and hold him until the cops come. So that happened. And that fucked with me, like, for quite, like, a while. Yeah. Like, I had never seen anything like that before. And now I look back at it and I'm like, that was crazy. And I'm like, whatever. But at the time, like, the next couple of days, I was really, like, kind of in shock. Like, because I remember sitting under the bar and thinking, like, I'm gonna fucking die. Like, he's gonna kill everybody. Like, I was totally freaked out. And of course, in reality, unless he's got a load of bullets in his pocket, that's not possible. But at the time, you have no idea, like, what's the worst case scenario basically pops into your head. So yeah, so that happened, and I took a little bit of a hiatus from just talking to anybody or dealing. I'm still off social media. I just kind of, I mean, not because of that. I just got off, and once I got off of it, I was like, this is great. So I took a little of a break. But yeah, so that happened, and I mean, everything's fine now, but it did freak me out the first week.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So that happened. Yeah, that was not a movie. It really did happen. And then
just trying to get some snacks, and you got an awesome story.
Exactly. Got drunk eating sushi, and then then all of a sudden guns come out. So good old Atlanta.
We call it Hot Atlanta over here. Now I see why.
Yeah, exactly. So apparently at the end of the day, this guy is going to get charged for brandishing a firearm, assaulting the bartender.
At least them, because he was also, I mean, this guy was huge. When he stood up, we were like, oh shit. I mean, he looked like he was like a bodybuilder, rapper, wrestler. I mean, I don't even know how to explain him. He was giant.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I'm saying, listening to your story, Kristi, and I'm wondering if you were thinking the same thing, Moni, when you were saying that your friend was like not on my watch. I was fully expecting her to like cartwheel out, pull the 38 out of her, out of her boot, and like put this guy down before he killed everybody.
I was like, Jamie, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, she waited until they scooted the gun away from him to get brave, but I'm like, dude, you don't know if he's got anything else in those pants. He's giant.
I was also curious if her and I were the same person, because that's exactly the kind of sorry, Jamie, stupid shit that I would have done. So.
No, but we
I'm disappointed that didn't happen, but I'm happy that everybody was all right.
Yeah, I mean, we were really, really drunk, so I'm sure in some way, I'm like, your kid's grown. I got kids to go home to. You need to be quiet and sit in this hidey hole that you dragged me into, because I was so shocked that I'm just sitting at my table too, and she grabs me and throws me down on the ground. It's like, hit the floor. I'm like, she's got all the good words. Like, she knows what to do in a crisis. I'm just sitting there drooling, trying to figure out what's going on, and she's like, yeah, yo, hit the floor. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, hit the floor. And then, like, one of the couples we were talking to at the bar turns around. They're still sitting at the bar. Like, they see this every day. And they turn around and they're like, look for us. And then they look down and we're, like, next to them in the corner. And I'm like, this is what they teach you at school. She just started laughing her ass off. So, yeah, that happened. But anyway, moving on.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my story, my crazy story.
Are you sticking to it?
I am sticking to it. I'm sure Jamie will be pissed that she's not here to tell it too, because we were driving when we were going home. We were like, "What the fuck happened? What just happened? Like, holy shit! Like, it was so crazy." So anyway, yeah,
good times. Well, we gotta remind me to party with you soon. Oh wait, I'm going to. Shit.
Yeah.
And Mr. Yardley, I don't know if you can follow that act, but what you been watching and into the last couple of weeks?
Sort of some similar things, just kind of transitioning different hours.
Getting shot at?
that I work. Just changing the hours that I work. But I think for the most part, as far as things that I was watching, you kind of stole a little bit of the thunder talking about The Terror, but I was checking that out.
Sorry.
But also I got into Netflix's The Frankenstein Chronicles. Have y'all watched that?
I watched the first episode. I want to watch some more.
I have never heard of it.
I watched the whole first season yesterday, and I was starting on the second season right before we started recording today. But yeah, that show's pretty. I mean, it's pretty dope. It's got Sean Bean
Ooh, yeah.
For those who don't really know, he was the guy who played Ned Stark, and he's been in a ton of other movies, but he is like the main character in this story. And I don't even, yeah, it's really weird. It takes place, gosh, I don't even know what year. When was Frankenstein and Mary Shelley? When was all of that stuff?
It's like 1400.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, you mean when it was? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I know that it took place like a long time ago. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not really tracking, the exact date that they were
It's all
using
good.
for the show. But you're basically going through this story with Sean Bean as he finds out how these murders have been going on, in the area, right? And the reason why he sets off on this is in the first episode, basically a girl washes up and she's basically, stitched together with different limbs from different people.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of leads into a personal story for him, and of course, they're trying to find out, who's murdering these people in doing this. And as always, the trail ends up leading them to powerful people, and now the powerful people are trying to screw him over, blah blah blah. But it is great. It's written great. It's very gloomy. The effects are great, and it's just I don't know. It's like it really sucked me in. So the fact that I spent a large amount of my day like between Call of Duty and watching this show, I have to let everybody know that I personally think it's great, and I think that everybody here should check it out because it's something I definitely would like to talk about on the show in the future.
Okay. Well, I'll have to watch. I want to rewatch the first episode because I was kind of doing that multitask mom thing where I actually had 5 minutes to myself. So I was like, I'm going to watch a show. I'm going to try this Frankenstein Chronicle. And I watched it and I liked it, but I was also like, I'm going to also fold laundry. And that's not a show you can do something else while you're. So I was like, I'm missing shit right now and I want to see this. So
what would you, Yardley, is there a way to compare it to another show that maybe, like. No. Okay. Awesome. That makes me happy.
It's totally its own thing. And even though I went through the whole first season yesterday, I still wanted to go back and probably rewatch like the last 3 or 4 just to make sure. I mean, it gives you everything that you need to track it. But, as Moni was saying earlier, sometimes you get a little distracted and you'll end up having to rewind it back.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it doesn't really feel like anything else. And trust me, by the time you get to the last episode of the first season, you're gonna totally be like, what the hell is going on?
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it's got real world stuff, but then it mixes in. You remember the animated cartoon that we were watching? It was Perfect Blue.
Yeah.
You know how like sometimes in that movie, I will say that there's kind of a similarity where you're wondering, is this character really there, or are they really seeing X, Y, and Z?
Yes.
You get a little bit of that in this, but I mean, you have more clarity because you understand certain aspects of this character and certain things that they're doing. Basically, your protagonist has syphilis, and it's basically affecting him mentally. So sometimes you're like, are you just hallucinating shit because of the syphilis, or are you something else? So it's crazy.
And it takes place in the past, like back when there was no like syphilis cures or anything. Okay.
And it puts there's an aspect of that as well, because there's of course like doctors are trying these experimental things out for it. Mm-hmm. But I don't really want to spoil it. But the protagonist is a great character that everybody's gonna like. And of course he's got syphilis, and then of course he meets this woman that you as a viewer are like, oh man, I wish they could get together. But then you're like, what, the guy's got syphilis. You know what I'm saying? And you'll find out why the syphilis is kind of a pain that he's purposely going through, because the syphilis had affected the family that he had before. So anyway, it's a great show.
Nice.
All right.
So get on it, and we'll talk about it.
That's good, because I'm in need of some good shows, some new shows. And my problem is that all the other shows that I love, I forget, and then they come out, and I have to go track them down because I'm so bad at like keeping track of everything. Like I'm like, when's Westworld coming back on? When's because I don't keep track of anything. So but I love introducing myself to new shit, especially when it's like a new concept.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, WonderCon, they did a panel. I didn't make it to the whole thing because I was trying to do a million things at once, but they had a panel that was the science of Westworld, and they also had the science of Pacific Rim. So there was some really cool shit at that con. I love that little con. And then also I wanted to mention actually pop culture related, horror related. I'm watching the Santa Clarita Diet. Have you guys, either of you watched that?
I've heard about it. I love Drew Barrymore. And I follow,
you would love it.
Okay, I follow her on Instagram, and she's talking, she's always talking about it. And so I'm like, I need to watch that because I love her. So that they like eat person. They eat humans, right? Like they're... From a working person staying awake perspective, the episodes are only like 25 minutes. Oh, they're like boom, boom, boom. They're fast. They're funny. They're like a sitcom. It's fucking hilarious. It's Timothy Olyphant. I love him. I'm like, he's so sexy. But so basically Drew Barrymore dies in the first episode and comes back as an undead person that now has a different personality, different temperament, and also like she used to be kind of a boring super boring, mild-mannered suburban house mom. Now she is more like she says what she thinks. She has like more balls, she's just like her boss is an asshole and she'll just kind of tell him so, that kind of stuff. She has way more of a sex drive, and by the way, she now needs to eat human people. So this is how her and her husband, who absolutely adores her, have to step through the challenges of killing people to keep her alive-ish. So it's got a lot of potential for dark humor, as you can tell. It's very gory, so it's very up our alley as far as this podcast. And I highly recommend it because it's super dark humor. The first season is just really funny. The second season, I'm about halfway through it, is a little more meat to it, a little less laughs, but a little more like mystery and twists and turns. But both are very well written and very entertaining. So I highly, highly recommend both seasons. Awesome.
So so that's another thing. And then just a kind of a funny aside story that's related to entertainment, not as much to this podcast. We hired... I don't know if you guys are into wrestling, like old school WWF wrestling, but Ivan Putski, the Polish Hammer, we hired him to be the library's security guard.
No way.
So he is going to start as my right-hand man on Monday. We'll be training him, and I'm very excited. And he moonlights. He does security at a strip club down in San Diego. So he's like, just full disclosure, that's another thing that I do. But he came to his interview in a 3-piece suit. Like he's in his 60s. He looks like someone you don't want to fuck with. Like I am very excited to have this person keeping the peace because he really knows how to talk to people too. So I'm very excited to have him keeping the peace.
So there's two Polish hammers. There's a young one that's 34. Yeah. So I was like,
give away his identity too much, but
here he is.
The father.
Okay. Here he is.
The one who was more famous. Basically.
Hey, his birthday is January 21st. In case you need to know that.
Even his some of the information on his that's out there is not correct.
It's not
intentionally. So his age, for instance, he's younger than that.
Joseph Bednarski?
But that's not his actual name either, so I'm not going to give any more away than that.
No,
but his actual name is very cool to say, actually. But
he looks adorable.
Anyway,
Good. Yeah. How exciting. You got to put that
on. He's also a lot shorter than that stat gives out, but he's still like really broad and has those like super big hands and stuff. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have this guy cracking some skulls. We haven't had any security, so I've basically been the security, which is why I've been carrying my bling pepper spray lately. So I think we're going to benefit greatly. I have a former Marine on my staff who's a young man who keeps himself in good shape and wears a 3-piece suit even though he doesn't have to. I feel like I need to have both of these men standing outside and just greeting people in their suits, just like, hello, maybe wearing like an earpiece. I feel like that really is the vibe that I want to have.
Wow, I didn't realize it was so bad up in that library.
I mean, public places, man. Like you were in a sushi joint in Atlanta. Like shit happens.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, and I don't know if you've been on your Twitter lately, but I tweeted you from our Creepin' It Real account. I was just randomly caught some news that Fabio called the LA library Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
I tweeted you going, if this is the LA library, what's the Temecula library look like?
The San Diego Public Library, one of our sisters, because I'm actually at Escondido Library, but the San Diego downtown has gone to the security guards are armed. So whether you think that's good or not, I'm not even going to debate because it's caused obviously a political shit show for all of us. But in the meantime, the Sodom and Gomorrah thing, he was like, it's sex and drugs and rock and roll. And they're like, in the library? And he's like, yeah, in the library. And we were all like, all us librarians were like, which library is this?
Yeah.
Asking for a friend. Like,
Fabio, is Fabio going to a lot of libraries? I'm sorry, I call BS. I know he's on a lot of books.
Doubt it.
But he is not going to libraries. Yeah, so I find that hysterical. But when I read that, I was busting up laughing because I was thinking of you because you're not far from LA and you work in a library. So I was like, I wonder what Moni thinks about this.
Yeah, I want to go party at that library. We're like, can we make this a program that we do for adults? Because that sounds fucking amazing.
Yeah, sign me up.
At any rate, we've had a kind of a softball with this show today, just sort of catching up since we've been out for so long. We've all had so much going on. Initially, when I first did the theme for this show weeks ago, it was supposed to be in celebration of the world of like The Strangers, with The Strangers 2 having just come out, which apparently barely made a sound. I never heard anything about it. I didn't see the film. You guys didn't get a chance to see The Strangers 2, did you? Either of you?
I didn't, unfortunately.
Did not? No. I still would like to see it, but like I said, I haven't heard enough good things to warrant theater, going to.
Oh, really? So did it not?
Yeah, so I will definitely catch it, but I'm not going to go see it in the theater. But I thought it would be kind of fun, and we don't have to read all of these just for time restraints, but to read some of the real life stories briefly that The Strangers film, the original one anyway, was inspired by. And, let's just pretend we have production value right now and have like creepy music going into it.
Hey, I'll put some in. Be nice.
Exactly.
You do put it at the beginning and the end. That's true.
Yeah.
But I was thinking we would play the audio clip, from the Strangers movie where she says, "Why are you doing this to us?" And one of the killers says, "Because you were home."
I can still put that shit in.
There. Okay. Well, so if we go back to that, we can put that shit in. So imagine that shit is in. Story number 1. The murders took place on the evening of April 11th, 1981 in Keddie, a small defunct railroad town in Plumas County, California. Sue Sharp and her 5 kids had rented a cabin 28 at the Keddie Resort, where they had stayed since the previous November after Sue left her abusive husband. On the evening of the murders, Sue was home with her 2 youngest boys, Greg and Rick, who had their friend Justin over for the night. Sue's oldest boy, Johnny, came home later in the evening with his friend Dana. The eldest daughter, Sheila, was spending the night with a friend nearby, while the younger daughter, Tina, you're going to have to remember all these names, came home from watching TV with a neighboring friend sometime during the evening. In the early morning hours of April 12th, Sheila returned home from her friend's cabin to retrieve some clothes so she could attend church with the friend's family. That's when she discovered the brutally murdered bodies of her mother, Johnny, and Dana. 22 feet of white cloth medical tape, which had come from Sue's cabin, was used to bind the limbs of the bodies along with the extension cord from the television. A dull, flimsy table knife was found near Johnny's body. A bloody hammer and butcher knife were found on a table, though the autopsy showed that the bodies had been bludgeoned by 2 different hammers. In addition to the bludgeoning, Sue, Johnny, and Dana were found with multiple stab wounds on their body and their throats. Dana had been strangled while Johnny had been bludgeoned by a rifle that was never found. A trash can at a nearby general store yielded another bloody knife. While Sheila, Rick, and Greg all survived, Tina was still missing. Judging by the police reports, some believe that Tina's absence was not immediately recorded, nor was it given much consideration. In 1984, a human skull fragment was found about 29 miles from the Keddy Resort, but it still took months before the police searched the area, and they only did so after receiving a call from an anonymous party who claimed the skull fragment belonged to Sue's missing daughter. A search of the area turned up several more bone fragments, and testing confirmed that the bones belonged to Tina. Adding further eeriness to the case is Justin, Rick, and Greg's friend, who was sleeping over at the time of the murders. In the statement given to police, Justin described a scene that reads as a half dream, half reality, in which two men attack Sue on a boat that resembles the cabin's living room, with Johnny and Dana arriving home in the middle of the crime. The two older boys confront the assailants, but are ultimately subdued and restrained. Tina is awoken by the noise and walks in on the killers, who drag her away. Justin maintains that this was not a dream, but that he did witness the murders, or at least portions of the events. Given his younger age, 12, and the dramatic circumstances, it's easy to see how the details of the crime may have blended with a dream that Justin was having as he woke. So, what were you going to say?
I said, ooh.
Yes. That is one of the real-life stories that is said to have inspired The Strangers, the first film, just having random people come and basically spend the night terrorizing and killing you. And Liv Tyler sort of lived at the end of that film. She was supposed to make a cameo in the second one, and that's part of why I lost some of the enthusiasm of seeing the sequel, was because she didn't end up being in it. So that's kind of sad for me, because I wanted to see, like, did she just end up dying right away? Did she give a statement to the cops, but people went out and killed somebody the same night? But it doesn't sound like they kind of went that route, which is super bummery. But I was kind of curious, Yardley, I don't know if you're feeling well enough with your cold. Are you able to read the second story? Okay.
Of course. Well, of course. She can edit out. She can edit out any hacks, but to kind of follow up on some of that inspiration, story number 2 is on the Manson family. So the Manson family was a hippie commune led by Charles Manson, a manipulative mastermind that had the power to guide the members of the commune into committing a series of murders, spreading panic and terror. Lino and Rosemary LaBianca were a successful business couple living in the Los Feliz area of Los Angeles. On August 10, 1969, they returned to their home at 3301 Waverly Drive from Lake Isabella, where they spent most of their weekend. What happened later that day was a nightmare coming true, especially for Rosemary, who was already worried and alarmed by the multiple murders that happened the previous night in the neighborhood. She was rightfully worried. Charles Manson himself, along with Tex Watson, broke into the house and found Lino sleeping in the living room and his wife in the bedroom. After they brought Rosemary into the living room, they tied their arms and legs, covered their heads with a pillowcase, and then proceeded to stealing whatever cash and valuable items they could find. Manson went back to his car and told two members of the family, Leslie Van Houten and Patricia Krenwinkel, to go into the house and follow directions from Tex. The girls went in and took Rosemary into the bedroom. Tex started stabbing Lino in the living room, who started screaming bloody murder. Immediately after Lino's first scream, his wife started yelling and resisted with all of her power. The Manson girls, unable to control Rosemary, asked for Tex's help. Tex runs into the bedroom, and without hesitation, he started stabbing Ms. LaBianca, then gave the knife to the girls and told them to continue stabbing the victim. He then went back to the living room and continued his horrific crime by finishing up Lino and carving on his stomach the word war, a reference to the apocalyptic race war that the Manson family believed they would soon initiate. They also wrote on the walls, using the victim's blood, "Death to Pigs" and "Rise," plus a misspelled Helter Skelter on the fridge. The Beatles song Helter Skelter was, according to Manson, a description of this future race war that he passionately believed will inevitably happen. Rosemary was stabbed a total of 41 times, and her husband a total of 26 times, with a knife that was left in his throat and a fork in his stomach. Rosemary's son, Frank, found his parents' brutally slaughtered bodies the next day. That's pretty sad.
Damn.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, y'all. So that was the second story that the writers of the Strangers films said directly inspired them. And those were the only two that are known to have directly inspired the films. However, 1 out of every 3 murders committed is a random act by a stranger. And with that statistic in mind, Kristi's going to read our third and final story.
Okay. On the morning of October 12th, 2000, 48-year-old Mary Henderson Morris left her Houston home. Later that day, her burned car was found in a remote area with Mary's torched body inside. Curiously, the victim's wedding ring was missing. By all accounts, Mary was a loving wife and a mother without any enemies, so no one could figure out why she was murdered in such a horrific fashion. However, the case took a surprising turn 3 days later when a 39-year-old woman was found dead inside her car in the same vicinity. She had been beaten and shot with her own gun in a failed attempt to make her death look like a suicide. The victim's name, Mary McGinnis Morris. Shortly before her death, Mary McGinnis Morris had made a frantic phone call to 911 while she was being attacked. Attention soon turned toward Mary's husband, Mike Morris, who stood to collect a substantial life insurance policy from his wife's death. While Mike had an alibi during the time of Mary's murder, phone records showed that he made a 4-minute call to Mary's cell phone 2 hours after her frantic call to 911. Mike claimed that no one answered the call and that he let Mary's phone ring for 4 straight minutes. This led to a theory that Mike hired someone to murder his wife, but that they killed another person named Mary Morris by mistake. Oh man, that sucks. Mary Henderson Morris' missing wedding ring may have been taken by a contract killer as proof that they completed the job. However, police have since leaned towards the position that the 2 Mary Morris murders are nothing more than a bizarre coincidence and that no connection to each other. Nevertheless, they both remain unsolved. Wow.
Nice. That is a very specific. Sorry if your name is Mary Morris.
That's some like Sarah Connor Terminator bullshit right there.
So if anybody's interested in watching some movies that we might recommend about random killings, we would say When a Stranger Calls, The Strangers 1 and 2, the movie Them, which is available, I think, on Netflix currently, Wolves at the Door, which is not a good movie, but it's about
I'm like, you're recommending that
the
shit?
Manson murders, and Helter Skelter. Do you guys have any others that you recommend?
Well, actually, my recommendation is pretty much going to be based off of the teaser. So, for next week.
Anything else about random killers, Miss Kristi?
No. I mean, you did a good list. I'm happy with it.
All right, then, Mr. Yardley, what is our teaser for next week? What are we up to?
You know what? Next week, there is a movie on Netflix. It's called Raw. It's a 2016 French horror drama. It was written and directed by Julia Ducamorno and starring Garance Maillet. Basically, the plot follows a young vegetarian's first year working at a veterinary school, and she tastes meat for the first time. And then that, of course, makes her develop a craving for flesh. Now, I have not seen this myself yet. I am going to watch it this week along with hopefully both of you. But I already know that after she eats the meat, it's going to be a total shit show of probably her just taking pieces out of people's asses. So I totally look forward to this. Oh. And it got a 91% aggregation score from Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score was 76%. But it seems, people seem to like it. And I do think that it's an interesting concept to kind of make a horror movie off of, even though you can kind of see what's coming a mile away.
Yeah, well, I think we should watch it along with the Santa Clarita Diet because I feel like they go together in a very strange flesh-eating way. Without further ado, then, can we talk about, please, by the way, creepers, tell your friends about us, rate us, give us some ratings on iTunes and on Podbean, subscribe, follow, what else? What about social media? Mr. Yardley, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Millicent_Marker.
Very nice. Miss Kristi?
I am the Creepin' It Real Show across the board, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I haven't been much on Facebook or Instagram, but I will get back on there been doing a lot of Twitter, so love developing relationships with our other podcasters out there, and we're all just it's a great family of people in podcasting are just supportive of each other. There's no weird no conflicts. Nobody's jealous or angry, or you'll get a few of them, and I think it's hysterical. They'll like rival each other on each other's podcasts, and I'm pretty sure that's fake, but I still think it's pretty fucking funny. But I do have two I've been listening to that I really do recommend. One of them is a new podcast. It's a woman. It's called The Dark Divide, and she literally tells stories about real true crime, and she just tells them in such a beautiful way. I mean, it's the stories that she tells, of course, are real, but she should be a writer. I mean, they're beautiful. And so I listened to, I think there's 5 episodes of that. Fantastic. It's brilliant. And then for something really fun in the paranormal world is Foodie, Boozy, Spooky, Sweary. Something kind of similar to us, so
right.
They're like our sister show, and they're really fantastic. They're funny and a lot of fun. So if you're in the mood to get some giggles, they're a great option. And then if you're interested in really diving down and having something serious, The Divide is fantastic. Or The Dark Divide is fantastic. So
sorry, Mom.
That's
nice.
Really it.
I apparently was looking for those on my phone, and Suri decided to pipe up. Sorry about that. The foodie one, the Foodie Boozy, it's FODDIE or like what?
It is FODDY BOZY. Foodie, Boozy, Spooky, Sweary.
Okay, I will find that, and if Suri doesn't find that shit for me, Jesus. That bitch is always up in my Kool-Aid. And I am Moni Bear on Instagram and Rebel Moni on Twitter. I am starting to do more tweeting, but I am definitely all over Instagram, so head over there if you want to find me. I usually try to post like funny shit. And with that being said, thank you guys for bearing with us after our last show. And for making through our hiatus. Hope this show was worth it. I know we had a great time, and we will talk to you soon.
Yes.
Until next time.
Looking back on the past 4 years and wondering, why is everyone becoming increasingly distant? It's attached, they're burning out like a box of matches. Am I crazy? Yes, or are things clearly not the same? Life sucks, life sucks, life sucks, life sucks. Listening to the songs we always used to try to. Now it's so hard to try to forget about it, and somehow just give them all a new sense of meaning. And all these so strange feelings are etched into